filing, made in response to a lawsuit by the Center for Public Integrity, was the first time the Trump administration acknowledged the existence of those emails. Bloomberg has learned WeWork plans to name Sandeep Mathrani as its new chief executive. Mathrani, who was previously CEO of Brookfield Property Partners Retail Group, will replace Artie Minson and Sebastian Gunningham. That duo had served as co-CEOs of WeWork parent WeCo since Adam Newman stepped down in September following the failed IPO attempt of WeWork. In India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government surprised investors by saying it will sell part of its stake in the state-run behemoth Life Insurance Corp of India. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Susanna Palmer. This is Bloomberg.
This is Balance of Power.
We have the strongest economy by far in the world.
And grow our trade relationship.
I know what's broken. I know how to fix it.
Where the world of politics meets the world of business.
They've got the money they need to run a very competitive race.
We've got now a real crunch few days for Brexit.
We want certainty in the markets. We want certainty in our trading relationships.
The administration is trying to create a new divided world. Balance of Power with David Weston on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up this hour, companies around the world are trying to figure out growth for the new year. And now they have the coronavirus in China to deal with as well. I talked to the CEO of 3M about how he is dealing with the crisis and got his growth outlook as well. Plus, reaction to the just signed USMCA trade agreement from a Republican congressman. And for the business perspective, I talked to Neil Bradley, Executive Vice President at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. But first, Chinese authorities have ramped up their efforts to contain the coronavirus. But is it enough? I posed that question to Dr. Celine Gounder, Clinical Assistant Professor in the Department of Medicine at NYU.
So there are two key developments that I think will help us answer that question. So one of which, it would appear that the virus was already spreading even as early as October and at least in November. So that means the virus was spreading undetected. And so we're really only detecting it now because we're looking for it. We have tests for it that didn't really emerge until the end of December. So that's one key issue. The other key development is that it would seem that sometimes the virus may be transmitting by people who do not have symptoms at all. And that has yet to be confirmed by the CDC, but if you can't figure out who's infected and who might be transmitting, it's very difficult to contain this.
At the same time, there seems to be, I won't call it panic, but a lot of concern in China. Everybody's got masks on. Is there a risk here of actually panicking people and being counterproductive, everybody flocking into healthcare centers immediately?
Well, the history has shown that travel bans and quarantines don't usually work. We've never done anything on this scale before. Quarantines in the case of Ebola were very specific actually to the specific patient who had symptoms, who was being diagnosed and managed. But when you're doing this kind of population level quarantine, it has not been shown to work. It basically drives, as you said, mass panic. And also as a consequence of all of this, you're already seeing shortages of food, of medical supplies. We've seen videos of Chinese women in grocery stores, duking it out literally to buy produce. And some of that may actually be even more dangerous.
Have we learned from earlier epidemics, and I guess SARS is the one we automatically think of, because that was a coronavirus, right?
That was another coronavirus.
Did we learn something there about what does work and what doesn't work in trying to contain this, or does it just have to burn its way out?
So if this is not transmitted by people without symptoms, then the same strategies we used for prior coronaviruses like SARS, as well as for Ebola, which is basically what are the symptoms, getting tested, if you're contagious, having them be hospitalized until they're outside of that window, that works. And then you're also tracing contacts of people who've been in contact with them. But if people who don't have symptoms are transmitting, that's a game changer.
What about a vaccine? Everyone immediately talks about a vaccine, but as I understand, we still don't have one for SARS.
We still don't have one for SARS. The hope is that we might have, using sort of the basis of SARS vaccine candidates, using those as candidates for a coronavirus vaccine that would work here. Maybe we could have those in clinical trials by June, but you're still looking at some period of time after that. Others are predicting right now that based on modeling of the disease transmission, we may be looking at this disease peaking in April or May. So, well before you would have a vaccine candidate. And a lot of people could die in that time.
Are there other treatments that stop short of a vaccine? For example, Tamiflu, we hear a lot about.
There's no particular reason to think Tamiflu would work here. It's an entirely different kind of virus. In general, when you have have somebody who has a viral pneumonia, and a lot of things can cause that, including the flu, actually.